Welcome back to another episode of Positively Uncensored, your favorite reality TV and interview podcast. It's your host, Leah, and today we will be diving into Love is Blind, Season 9, Episode 1, and a little bit of Episode 2, because transparently, I haven't finished it yet. Now, why I'm recording this without having finished Episode 2 is the pods are my least favorite part. And I know I'm not the only person thinking that. Raise your hand if you hate the pods. I think that all of this should be compiled into 2 episodes. Quite frankly, if we're not going to end up seeing a couple in the long run, why are you getting us attached to them? It just feels like a waste of time. Or if you're going to get us attached to a couple because their journey is an important part in the season, please don't show us thousands of useless conversations amongst couples that we probably won't care about and won't root for. With that being said, season 9, episode 1 surprised me because I did find myself a little bit more intrigued than usual for the pods. However, this quickly subsided by the start of episode 2, and I was immediately back to the feeling that I have every season of Love is Blind on the pods. Now, they may try to spend this entire season convincing us that love is blind, but we are going to be seeing everything and digesting it together. Let's get into episode 1, which starts with in the pods before this experience starts, or at the living quarters for the women and the men, we hear about some of the contestants' expectations for this season. Now, because this is episode 1, I don't expect that any of us have everybody memorized. So I am going to be trying to pull up the pictures of the contestants. With that being said, if you are not watching but you are listening, feel free to pull this up later or park yourself over, play this episode on YouTube instead when you have time, because I will be showing you people. I also may struggle a little bit to find people because I'm trying to zoom in so that you can see everything and you don't have to squint your eyes at your TV, phone, or tablet. Now, China is who's up on my screen right now, Chyna. China talks to us in the women's living quarters about how she is used to men perceiving her as being stuck up and that she's excited for this experience to sort of remove that expectation that men place on her and the experience that she has a lot of times outside in the dating world. Now, for everybody who's like, wait a second, where are we? Reminder, this is Love is Blind Denver. So we are out in Denver, Colorado. The next person who I'm going to talk about is Edmund, who the producers did quite dirty, if I say so myself, when they showed us videos of him in his casting video and it said that he likes to eat his boogers. Now, like I said, I'll probably struggle to pull a couple of these guys up, and my find feature wasn't working. But Edmund in the casting video, he was cute enough. But all that we learned about him at the time from the clip that the producers had shared with us is that he, as an adult, likes to eat his boogers. With that being said, I didn't have high expectations for him. However, the booger thing quickly went to at least like the back part of my brain as we learned more about him in the pods. Now, Edmund says that he would like to build a family of his own, have a wife and children of his own after growing up in foster homes and not having that experience. He talks a little bit more about this later on in the episodes, which I'm going to get to in just a second. The only other thing that I'd like to point out before we actually get into the pods is what Megan W has to say that she's looking for in a guy, but you might not recognize her going by that name because every single person that she's talked with in the pods, she introduces herself as Sparkle Megan. Take a shot every time Megan says Sparkle Megan. She very much is striking me as somebody that they would put into a box as being quirky and eccentric and having like a shtick for herself. on The Bachelor. Nonetheless, Megan W says that she wants to find a secure man because she has done very well for herself financially, and she has struggled with the discernment of finding men who actually want Megan and not her money. I would like to say that it's just my non-professional opinion that if somebody has a lot of money, it's just not my taste that like sparkles is the way to show that. I'm here for bling. I'm here for a little bit of razzle dazzle, but I can't say that like branding myself as like the sparkle queen would be the route that I would go to. In fact, for anybody who's ever watched Big Brother, it's really reminding me of Lisa. And if you don't know who Lisa is, Lisa was the girl on Big Brother who also deemed herself as a sparkle queen. Now, Casey is the first person who we see her dates inside the pods. If you listen to my predictions episode where I just took a look at all of the contestants for season 9, I said that I couldn't look at her and not see either Kristen Cavallari or the ex wife of Tarek El Musa on Flip or Flop. That's what she reminds me of. And I'd like to say that spoilers for episode 2, initially I liked Casey. Like when you introduce yourself as, "Hi, I'm Casey. I love my cat." In fact, my cat was just runner up to be featured in Modern Cat. I thought that that was hilarious. However, if you know me and you're frequently on Positively Uncensored, I'm kind of a little bit reluctant when I see a tan blonde who looks like she could have gone to ASU. Does that mean that every tan blonde is problematic? No. Does that mean that a lot are? Yes. Yes. Now, she talks about how she was in a 10-year relationship prior and with somebody who she had dated since high school. So the first time that she was single was 27, and she doesn't know what it's like to be in a relationship and not be cheated on. We see her have a conversation with Patrick, who is one of the only Asian contestants on the season, Asian men, that is. And they initially have a great conversation about how they both like sports, how they would spend their weekend going to sporting events. And she talks about how she has 5 sisters. Her sister sings in Korean. I'm sorry, 5 siblings and a sister who sings in Korean, and that she's killing it over there in Korea. And initially, this made me think, like, okay, like you're very open minded potentially, or your family is at least a little bit quirky. When I think that your sister sings in Korea and is in what is it called? Um Literal brain fart. Interested in other cultures. I'm like, okay, that doesn't seem like very Republican. However, I get a different impression of Casey later on. She also talks about how her dad did his mission for the Mormon church in Korea. And once she said that, that's pretty much where I was like, I know that Casey said that she isn't Mormon now, but that's sort of like her sister's introduction to knowing Korean is the fact that her dad went over there and would sort of try to indoctrinate Koreans. I find that a little strange. Now, she doesn't know that she's saying this to Patrick, who is Asian. She may have a feeling, but she doesn't know. Patrick's next conversation is with Anna, who I love. Let me pull. So here's Anna, who, as I said, she is stunning, but the casting photos really didn't do anybody justice. She's absolutely stunning, has a great personality. And let me show you Patrick because I have referenced him more than once now. And this is Patrick. Now, Patrick has a conversation with Anna. He doesn't know this, but both of them are Asian, where he talks about how he had insecurities. Actually, excuse me. They did learn, and they said this in a way that Had neither of them been Asian, I don't think that they would have been able to, like, pick up on the signs, but it was clear that for the 2 of them as they were connecting, when they shared that they both didn't have a middle name, and when he shared that his parents are from somewhere else from outside of the country, and that she has a similar experience, they could tell that there was a lot of commonality there, so they knew that they are both Asian. So he says that he has a lot of insecurities being an Asian guy and in a predominantly white area, and having people tell him things like, "You're attractive for an Asian guy," or "I would be interested in you if you weren't Asian," or even something like, "Why are you with him? Because he's Asian." And it's not surprising because I've heard of a lot of Asian hate and racist things being said, but it's just a reminder that white people are very insensitive to the other cultures around them, even starting back being kids. Because I am the note taker in my notes, I'm going to be all over the place in this. They do not, I was correct, know at this point that they are both Asian. When Patrick made this comment, it was in his confessional that he had. Okay. But like I said, them both talking about how they speak other languages, their parents are from different countries, they both don't have a middle name. They're both sort of kind of putting the clues together. Additionally, both Patrick and Anna, living in Denver, Colorado, have the experience of mostly dating white people. Patrick said that he's mostly dated white women. Anna says that she's mostly dated white men. So they are in a very similar position. So Patrick and Anna would be a very cute couple. The thing is that Anna has a great conversation with Blake, and I was ready to just rule him out. However, for context, when I looked at everybody's Instagram prior to the season, I saw that Blake on his socials had multiple photos with President Obama, which tells me a lot about him, a lot about him. Okay, so Anna and Blake connect right away, and he asks if there's any hot button issues that she would like to talk about. They first bring up religion, to which he tells her that he's not really religious, and she feels the same way. She says, "Okay, it doesn't really seem like you're racist or homophobic. That's not the vibe that I'm getting." And he confirms that he's not. I did think it was interesting that Love is Blind had that conversation in there just because it was very direct. And it made me wonder if in past seasons these conversations have frequently come up and been edited out, or if these are just two particularly informed contestants. So Blake is 32 for context, and the other person that he's connecting with is Megan W. Blake, Sparkle Megan isn't really who I wanted you. Oh, wrong, wrong. It's not Blake. It's Brendan. Pause. Actually, it was correct. She did have a conversation with Blake, but she ultimately ends up having a longer conversation with this guy, Brendan. And they both have prioritized their career. She's 33. She doesn't know that he is 37. And it sounds like they have a lot of interest in things like tech, specifically health tech, health clubs, and she talks to him about her past working for an oil and gas company and her future endeavors, which is some sort of tech startup company for a health club. Okay. Now, Mike says that he is also very passionate about his career. He has a lot of things established. He buys one property every year. He has a red light therapy light at his desk, but he doesn't really have somebody to share his life with. And now that's what he's looking for. They could potentially be a great match because they're both strange and into like expensive, some would say excessive things. And so, as somebody who has watched many seasons of Married at First Sight, I would say that Megan liking to spend like money on her stuff, she wouldn't want to be with someone who's more financially constrained or feels more financial anxiety and doesn't spend the same way as her, because likely she would give that person anxiety or make them feel not safe. Jordan is a single dad who lives life pretty modestly. it seems like he has like a good job, but he's not like the CEO of a company. And him and Megan start to connect. He's also a single dad. I'm not sure if I mentioned that to his 5-year old son, Nico. Now, he's also had a vasectomy, but he talks about how he would get it reversed if having children is something that his wife would like to do. From the sounds of the conversations, it seems like Megan W. Would like to have children. Now, as I was just talking about the financial security thing, I don't think that Jordan and Megan W would be well matched. And that's not to say because he's financially insecure, but even the way that he described his job, it was very like self-deprecating a little bit, like he wasn't very confident in that. I also think that he has a lot of priorities that revolve around his son, and yes, Megan W talks about how in a later conversation with Brendan, how she actually likes some of the traditional gender roles, such as the woman being the nurturer and the husband more so being the provider. But I just don't picture them living. I picture him finding pleasure in the small things, and I picture her finding things from the finer things in life, i.e. exquisite or expensive. I think that they would have two very different pictures of what a vacation would look like. I think a vacation for him might look like a trip whitewater rafting with his son or to Disney World, and a trip for her might look like a cabana or in Paris. Now, could I be wrong? Yes, but this is Sparkle Megan, right? In the pods is Allie, who is 27 years old, and her full name is Alini. Yes, Alini. That's how I have the pronunciation written in my notes. Alini is a beautiful name, and she is a beautiful girl. However, there's just something a little strange about Alini. I think that sort of like volunteering that you know how to throw a grenade is like quite the thing to say. But that's just me as somebody who feels conflicted about the military altogether. Her and Anton nonetheless end up connecting. They have a conversation where he talks about how he's very old school with how he treats women. He values women. He wants to have his children look up to him, both as a role model, as being a parent, and for the example that they set, that he sets as a husband, and that he was taught to be stoic from his parents and not sheltered. He talks a little bit about how difficult things are with some of his family being in Russia, some of his family being in Ukraine, and the tension that goes on between the two areas. And all of those things are very interesting about Anton. The thing that gives me pause about Anton is he moves at rapid pace. I mean, we could call him the Flash. If he had to be a superhero, he would be the Flash because it's very intense. It's all consuming. This is myself. I'm going to project. This is my podcast. I'm allowed to do that. When someone uses pet names that quickly, it has always given me the ick. So in conversation, him calling her baby and then my baby so early on, that would have been an immediate write-off. And I don't know if there's something that irks me about you feeling so comfortable with me, or if there's something that feels disingenuous, like you do this with everybody, but we aren't there yet. That would creep me out. The next couple who we see have a very emotional conversation in the pods is Edmund and Calabria. And she, for first of all, is stunning. She is a social worker. And I'm sort of blanking on what Edmund does right now, but Edmund has a lot of past trauma. And I see some people speculating online that because has so much trauma and she's a social worker, that they're hoping that he isn't like a project for her, and talking about the experience of people who are social workers being drawn to people who are projects that they sort of have to fix up, that they have all of this empathy and care for. So I hope that that's not the situation for Calabria, and I hope that things go better. But their first conversation was very sweet. He nicknames her KB and talks about how he grew up in West Virginia poor in foster care, going back and forth between homes. And he gets very emotional talking about how his fifth grade teacher saved his life. I also shed a tear when Edmund talked about this because the role that a good or a bad teacher can make in a kid's life is just something so moving to me. And as someone specifically who worked at a boys and girls club in West Virginia for underserved children, and I saw some of the circumstances that the children were in, my heart really goes out to Edmund, knowing West Virginia and knowing like the level of poverty that can exist in West Virginia, or really just how neglected the state is and forgotten about the state is. Now, we could have a separate conversation about the way that a majority of the residents of that state vote and why their state does not have some of the programs in place that they should. But overall, there's just like a tragic history with West Virginia that if you've ever been to West Virginia, or if you're from West Virginia, you're probably aware of. Oh, I wish that I was joking because on one hand, I said like make the pods snappy, make them fast. But when I said Anton moves fast, by the end of episode one, I have no idea how many actual dates they've been on, but by the end of episode one, he is proposing to Alini. Think about that. Think about that. The two of them meet each other. The doors open, and that's how the episode ends at the end of episode one. Megan W. also has a very emotional conversation with Blake about her dad, his passing, him having diabetes, and that's sort of not being the main cause, but having a cause on the reason for his death. And I'm just going to say Blake would be a great partner for whomever he's with. He's very emotionally available, emotionally intelligent. He leaves space in conversations. He keeps a conversation going. He comes across very empathetic in his tone. I mean, I think Blake is a catch. I'm just going to say. Moving on to episode two. Okay. Timestamp 2148. We're moving on to Love is Blind season 9, episode 2, and the things that I saw. Because why would I leave you on a cliffhanger when Anton and Alini just linked up and revealed themselves to each other? Now, part of me wondered how this would go. Mainly because, again, while unfair, I'd rather see a glasses chain than Anton walk out like this. And I know. Why does that give me the ick? It just does on men for some reason. But he comes out, he does have a luscious, thick head of hair. Is that what it said? Um, but she loves his hair. He's shocked because he's certainly outkicked his coverage. Let me pull back up Anton. And it's not that Anton is ugly, it's just the fact that he always has to have some sort of glasses on, and maybe he has bad eyes, like, that's unfair. He does have green eyes, so they could just be overly sensitive to the sun, and he is cute, like, he is cute, but, like, you move too fast, it's feeling a little bit cringe. He does look better as he's sitting there next to Alini, but overall, their meeting seemed pretty good. They kiss each other, they seem excited, and they acted like they were on a first date, and he was walking her to her doorstep, and he walked her back to the dressing room, which I think is like one of the first times that we've ever seen that. Next up, we meet Madison, and the producers really sort of leaned in on Madison's story because the show is called Love is Blind. They really used her story a lot in the previews because she has a rare eye disease, which may progress, and it may it may degenerate her eyesight, basically. So Madison has a conversation with Joe. I almost said with with Joe, where she talks about her eye disease. I don't love his interaction because what I was just saying about Blake, both leaving space in a conversation, but making you feel comfortable and having empathy and sort of like filling in the space in conversations. That's not how Joe went about the conversation. Like he pretty much fell silent. And I know it's a lot to process, but I'm just not trusting Joe yet. The way he said that if it was his wife or someone he'd want to take care of her, I don't know. I don't know about Joe. Don't pick Joe Madison. Nick is somebody who we need to talk about for just a moment because he's an example of somebody who we didn't really need to say. Like, yes, I can sit here and say, oh my gosh, this guy's really cringe. But aside from spending a couple of seconds saying that, we didn't really need to see whatever his dating story is because ultimately, I don't think that he's going to be chosen. Okay. Now, this is Nick. And I think that he would get along just fine with Leo, the luxury art dealer. He is a luxury watch dealer, allegedly, and talks about his fluid lifestyle because he is able to sell luxury watches. And yeah, I don't know. He just seems like 1 minute he's talking about that, and then the next minute, some white girl is saying how Target is her safe space, and like she never has a better time than when she's in Target. He's like, that makes you my number one. Like he's just a little bit too agreeable. Okay. Now Annie and Nick have a conversation, and I saw on Twitter. I'm hoping I didn't miss it, but I'm seeing that they have like a problematic conversation where they talk about what their child would be like, or how Nick insinuates that if his child was LGBTQ plus, that would just be a phase. As I just stated, I didn't like Nick and I wasn't interested in him and Annie's conversation immediately. So I will be skipping probably all of them if they actually do couple up and only tuning in so that I can hear that comment and then move forward because I find them a waste of time. I don't think he's cute. I think that if Annie believes that and ends up saying that in conversation, that the inside of her spirit isn't cute as well. Okay. Now, remember earlier in this episode where I said that Casey, the girl who I think looks like Casey, like Kristen Cavallari, that at first I liked her. She has a conversation with Patrick where she all but forces him to share his ethnicity. It's clear that he's uncomfortable. It's clear that he doesn't want to. And she is just so pushing this. He's like normally when someone says like I don't know if I want to, like let me see how to do this. Do you want me to? And she's like, "Mhm. I think you should. I think you should." Like, why? Why? The whole premise of this show is you're not supposed to know. I'm frustrated by that. It's one thing for Patrick and Anna to like share that moment together, and it's another thing for this to be mimicking the same experience that Patrick goes through on the outside dating experience. Why cast Casey? If you're not open with your dating preferences, I truly don't think you should ever be put on a show that's either Married at First Sight or Love is Blind. Love is Blind is even worse because on Married at First Sight, you're talking to the professionals about what you would want in your future partner and giving all but like a full list, physicality, what their personality would be like, their job, everything. Love is Blind. The entire premise is to be open to everybody. And it's like people would like to, me included in the people, we would like to see even more representation. But who's to say what the reaction would be if a contestant was in a wheelchair, if they have a contestant who's 300 pounds or heavier? Like, it's just like, don't cast people who aren't truly open and don't pitch the show as Love is Blind when everybody you're picking is like objectively conventionally attractive. I knew this would get me irritated, but Casey, fuck you. Go fuck yourself. You seem racist. How dare your sister sing Asian music, Korean music, and you not believe Patrick as he's sharing the experience of people saying to him, you're attractive for an Asian guy. She just didn't seem like she believed him. I think she's a bad person. You know what? Contrary to what your family says, stick to the white guys, the white guy F boys, because that's who you create a safe space for. She doesn't create a safe space for everybody else or for anybody else. What are you thinking of the first 2 episodes? Do you also hate the pods? Are you ready for them to just meet each other and be on the honeymoon? That's my favorite part. The honeymoon, being back at the apartments. I wish the order was reversed and only people who got to go on honeymoons as if they made it. But hey, I'm not directing the show. To quote Jesse Wu, Chris Colleen and his raggedy ass is. Make sure that you've liked this video, left a review, and tell me what you're thinking of. Do we have any hopes of any couples making it down the aisle? Oh, and as always, because I am forgetting to say this in my episodes, today's episode is sponsored by Audible. Audible gives you access to thousands of audiobooks, podcasts, and originals all in one place. I love it because I make all of this time to watch all of these shows, bring you recaps, but I'm not making enough time for the books that I want to read or my ever growing TBR list. With Audible, I can finally catch up on the books that I've been meaning to read while I'm in the shower, while I'm cooking, while I'm driving to work, and you can too. If you would like to support the show and try out Audible for free, you can do so by heading to the link in my show notes. And when you do, you're supporting the show and you'll also be trying Audible.